A few days before its release, Fire Emblem Engage was the inspiration for my video about Metacritic, and I am happy to report that my comments could not have aged better. To briefly recap, Engage received polarizing review scores, the higher end recognizing its combat finesse, and the lower end considering it's a step back from its previous entry, Three Houses. They essentially portray the unfortunate divide between franchise veterans, newcomers, anime fans, non-anime fans, the usual. Now, unlike Xenoblade, I am not qualified to give you a history lesson about Fire Emblem, but funnily enough, I happen to lie in the middle of all of this. I've played about a handful of the games, but the only ones I had beaten were Awakening and Three Houses, the latter of which is one of my favorite games of all time. So I wouldn't call myself a newcomer, but I do firmly empathize with them. And for that reason, I'll cut to the chase. If you enjoyed Three Houses for the intricacy and quality of its writing, then I suggest you lower your expectations. 12 MacGuffins known as Emblem rings are scattered across the land, and it's up to our heroes to collect them in order to save the world. That's pretty much it. The story is as equally straightforward as it is cheesy, not too divergent from an average anime or JRPG. The same can be said of its characters. Though they are colorful and plentiful, they are nowhere close to matching the depth in Three Houses. I understand why that may be a deal breaker, especially for a 40+ hour game. However, even though I'm a Three Houses fanatic, someone who has beaten each and every route, Engage's story didn't bother me in the slightest. The criticisms have veered into hyperbole. I know making something more anime is always controversial, but this is harmless at worst. There were several twists that pleasantly surprised me, and while the cast isn't worth bragging about, I grew to be invested in many of them. Again, not much subtlety here, but sometimes all you need is for them to be attractive, likable, or eccentric. And yes, that does include the main protagonist, Allier. Allier? Allier? Their name is never spoken. I know, we've all got our jokes. You got your Pepsis, you got your Colgates. But I don't drink soda, and I'm slightly allergic to Colgate, so I'm more of a firecracker ice pop kind of guy. Regardless, I don't care. I can't help but find female Allier to be adorable. She is a silly disaster of a dork. That's ultimately my point here. Engage isn't trying to be Three Houses, nor is it trying to be this gripping narrative. It'd be one thing if it was trying, and then failed, but that's not the case. I am totally okay with a leisurely crossover. I don't need every story to be thoughtful and complex. I don't need every story to make me cry and teach me lessons about life that I probably already knew. Just like a horror fan can enjoy a campy, cliche horror film, an anime fan can enjoy a cheesy, cliche anime game. When you strip down a beloved genre to its absolute basics, you can often find comfort in its familiarity. With how gentle, colorful, and picturesque the visuals are, it should be no surprise that all Engage is trying to be is a prominence of comfort. In that respect, the main hub is exemplary. The Somniel is such a comfy place to be, a paradise to unwind after a long, hard-fought battle. Preparing for war is much more than sparring and equipment. It's about eating meals together, going fishing, and simply getting to know each other through support conversations. Compared to Three Houses, these elements have been toned down by at least 50%, so take that how you will. I personally think they went a bit too far, specifically when it comes to the dialogue. The flavor text can be repetitive, even at unique locations. It has much less text in general, but isn't fully voiced, and while the classic heroes are welcomed, they don't have supports with anyone. Instead, they have small talk with everybody, and at times, it is all too realistic.
For all I had hoped to discuss with you, now that you are before me, I am lost for words. I know what you mean. But we'll have plenty of time to get to know each other.
What a mood. No joke, that was it. That being said, as much as I reveled in 3 houses, all of the social elements and dialogue took a lot of time to get through. By toning them down, Engage is able to settle at a much better pace. Give it a few tweaks and it'd be ideal. Either way, none of my qualms diminish what the Somniel has in store. You can't beat those cozy vibes, and there are even some neat surprises like a photo mode, asynchronous online, and swimsuits that are miraculously not DLC. Best of all, let us not forget this little guy. I mean, come on. Looks can be deceiving. Fire Emblem is not just a waifu or husbando simulator. Engage's writing took a back seat in favor of returning to the franchise's roots and refining it until it became the greatest it could be. The combat is fucking perfect. Its tremendous soundtrack and stunning visuals are befitting. Engage is everything you love about challenging turn-based tactics, but elevated to magnificence. First and foremost, the weapon triangle returns to Fire Emblem after being omitted from 3 houses. It's literally rock, paper, scissors, except it's swords, lances, and axes. Rather than an instant win, the appropriate weapon will have the upper hand and may even break the opposing weapon, briefly denying any counterattacks. There are a myriad of other weapon types and classes, but the main gimmick of Engage is the Emblem rings, and in this case, gimmick is a pleasure. By equipping one of these rings, a unit can engage a classic protagonist who will grant them one-of-a-kind abilities and skills. With something this cool, the last thing you'd want is for it to be so overpowered it takes away from the fun, but from my experience, I'd say they're well balanced. They last 3 turns at a time with cooldown, there is a limited number of them to begin with, and there will be enemies who use them against you. Even if you do find a certain combo to be strong, there is incentive to mix and match. Units will grow immensely by mastering more rings, a simple yet effective way to encourage the player without punishment. As compelling as the rings are, my favorite part of combat is all of the little things that add up. Backup units for chain attacks, chain guarding to protect one another, the perpetual nuance in map design. You can never rest on your laurels. The diversity and details make each encounter flexible and captivating. Bear in mind, I did play on hard mode with permadeath on, so that may color my opinion. I highly suggest at least hard mode if you're experienced with tactics, but if not, no worries at all. The mechanics are easy to learn with helpful tutorials, and when worst comes to worst, the rewinds got your back. If you have my type of luck, you might want to get used to it. Oh! Whoa! Whoa! Oh, hold on. Oh my god, that was bullshit! What? What are the odds? What are the odds? What the fuck was that? No BS. I'm tired of it. I've had this all day. I'm not in the mood. That's fine, whatever, just don't take damage. No! Okay, the future has changed. No! 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 Oh my god, the future has not. Wait! Let's go! The future has changed! Trust me, I was not bragging. I was getting my ass kicked my whole playthrough, desperately trying to keep all my units alive. There was even one battle I spent 4 hours on. And as strange as it may seem, that is the biggest compliment I can give to Fire Emblem Engage. In most video games, if a level had me struggling for 4 hours, I would be pretty dang upset, perhaps even look up a guide. But with Engage, I was determined to beat it on my own terms, and I was having fun each and every step of the way. No matter how hopeless it seems, no matter how badly luck was rooting against me, I somehow overcame the odds time and time again. There was always a strategy to move forward as long as I kept trying, and thus I became a regular of exceptional fulfillment. After all of my brain cells have been expended, it should be no wonder why I don't mind a plot where I can turn my brain off and accept that what I see is what I get. No, Engage does not have a great story, and it isn't Three Houses Part 2, but what it is comfort. The comfort of being in a familiar, amiable fantasy with the comfort of knowing there's a kick-ass battle awaiting you. Kind of reminds me of a certain other Fire Emblem crossover, but maybe that's a story for another day. You could probably tell this was a spontaneous video. I just liked the game so much and I wanted to clear the air around it. And to be honest, the vast majority of people I've seen have been enjoying it, so that makes me happy. You can have two polar opposites in a franchise, two games that focus on and succeed in completely different aspects, and find value in both of them. Three Houses may be one of my favorite games of all time, but Engage is what solidified me as a Fire Emblem fan. This is going to be a mainstay for me now. It genuinely makes me want to go back and revisit the older titles. But I probably won't, because I can't rewind.